let me just start the episode in a funny place. Like, why do you mention avocados on your Twitter bio? What's like the thought behind it? Is it because you see so many avocado toasts all over the world, or I know you have a message behind avocados? So let's just start there.
Look, we are in this climate debate, right? And I shouldn't say debate, because the IPCC has decided that, if we increase global temperature by 1.5%, this is the budget we have in terms of CO2 to get there. And then we don't know whether call it human life changes as we know it because of climate change. And then if you assume 2% of degrees is makeable, then it will change in this and this way and so on. And no one knows, of course. We cannot know these things, right? But so there are a lot of people. And then the European Union, don't forget, created the climate law based on that. And most nations out there, including China, committed, although some of these commitments are clearer and some of these commitments are not at all clear. But if you go to the fine print, but what I'm trying to say here is, it really, people take what came out there very seriously, and they want to help and contribute in their own way, which is fantastic, because people are fantastic. I think most people out there, they really want to help. Well, the thing is, that debate, I think, leaves a lot of people now with a very strong heart and a lot of passion, but it may not allow them to understand why we need fossil fuels, because that's an important part of our modern life. It's actually what modern life is built on, hydrocarbons. And if everyone is so, then I have a certain type in mind that you and I can see visually in front of us, that is there and tries to be what I call a good doer, and has a very strong opinion about this climate change, and at the same time is enjoying her or his avocado toast. Right? And that's where it all becomes awkward, because the avocado really needs a lot of fertilizer to be that beautiful avocado, and not just a little crampy little nothing avocado. And that avocado doesn't grow in Norway or in Switzerland. It actually comes from different places around the world that have the climate for it. And that means you have to transport it there, and then you have to harvest it. And all these things, if you go through them, like, I'm the kind of guy who likes to go through these numbers. And if you do these numbers, and I've done them now for, something like 20 years, you just understand what the carbon footprint is of an avocado. And it's an enormous footprint. I mean, it's like the one fruit that if I be the good Tsar of Europe, and I would say, okay, if we really want to do net zero, then sorry, the avocado is out of the supermarket. Eat something else, right? Go back to the local nutrition card that you have in Norway and that we had in Switzerland in the 50s, because, it wasn't normal to have a banana in Coop Micro or whatever the supermarket is where you come from. So I think people take a lot for granted these days. And then at the same time, they have very strong feelings, opinions about another aspect of life, and they want to go from A to B overnight, immediately. And that's a very dangerous thing.
If I can just
add... What I try to do actually on Twitter, I think more than anything else, of course, I tweet about all sorts of things related to commodities, but if anything in the future I could achieve, it would be to find the right way to educate as many as educate sounds like, oh, I'm an educator. I don't want to. I just like to bring it across so that people reflect and note more, be more conscious about what they are actually doing and what they are actually saying. And that often there is a wide gap in between. And if we can close some of that, then I think we are on the right direction. And also to think for themselves, because I think another thing that happens out there is that we all come from this strict educational system where we have to kind of go to school and, you know, from 8 to 5, and then we have to go to high school, and then we are in gymnasium, and then we go to university, and we're doing this, and then you come out and then you work, right? But what happens there in the process is that many stop reading, stop learning, stop educating themselves. And I think that's obviously, I'm not quite sure about the generation now, because they have such a different access to information than I had, you know, in the 90s. You know, there wasn't much internet in 96 when I started in investment banking, right? There was one person had a browser, and we had to go there to that central computer. And then you would go there and there was nothing, right? You couldn't find anything on it anyway. You would go to some company website because you had to look something up, and there was no information.
Definitely.
So it was a very non-digital world still in 96. And today, obviously, the access to information is completely different and so on. But there is the issue of fake news as well. And then some people get into the habit of just doing social media, so on. But, you know, the good old world of books, where a lot of people took a lot of time to explain the world. And, you know, if you're into books like I am, then I would suggest to your audience to read this book. If you do nothing else for the rest of your life, but if you read that, you probably know more about this debate that is currently ongoing, and that will, you know, massively form our lives for the next 30 years than anything else. You know, this Pimentel guy really understands it. It's almost a science book, but it's really, really a good book. And I think, you know, if we can help people to understand a bit more that the sandwich doesn't come out of the fridge, but it actually means that we have to go through a whole value chain, you know, supply chain of, you know, human action that involves a lot of hydrocarbons every single day. And that system is very fragile, and it was built starting with the invention of, or the finding of oil first, you know, in the late 19th century. And then since we were able to create the world that we have, and if you go back a little bit to the numbers and see, like, wow, you know, when President Kennedy was inaugurated, we only had, what, 3.5 billion people, and we are now close to 7.9 billion people. You know, the reason we can support that growth of people is because we have this modern way of doing things, meaning we use fertilizer that allows us to grow wheat, soybeans, corn, that you know, constitute the main call it diet for 80% of all countries out there. Gives us the proteins that we need, and without those we couldn't support the population we have. I mean, that's the kind of, you know, where it all should start, this debate. Because, you know, in a way, what we're doing here, by kind of making hydrocarbons the bad guys, right, when actually they provide the life that we live, is kind of a schizophrenic, very dangerous debate. Because if tomorrow, you know, the hydrocarbon industry, take the, you know, anybody who produces natural gas say enough is enough, I don't want to be the bad guy, I'm actually the good guy here, and they would turn off the taps, this world would be within weeks in complete chaos, you know. And especially the poorest of this world, and this is what concerns me so much. In Europe, we are so although we consider ourselves maybe anti-fragile, I think fragile. I think we are actually anti-fragile. We have such a robust system. Our cities were created, before we even knew hydrocarbons were there. And so everything we've done means we use very little of it, right? We consume a quarter of it compared to the United States, the cities of which were built after we found hydrocarbons mostly, and therefore they are much bigger. For everything you need a car, they have a completely different way of life. So Europe is actually in a very good spot, but yet we kind of strangle ourselves in a moment in a debate between climate crisis tomorrow, which then becomes a fixed data point. I'm going to come back to that in a moment, because we had many of those in my life already, which, by the way, remains an assumption. And the outcome of which, right, what does it mean when 2% plus is then really the world breaking down? And there are good books about that too. And then we have to, okay, therefore we need to change our way of life, of the industrial life on the hydrocarbon side, and that may cause a food crisis. But that food crisis is not in 30 years. That's in 2023, next year. So we have to be a little careful here, and I think we have to, as people that like reading and are into those topics, we have to we have a duty to pass on as smart and as good as we can the knowledge we have, to make everyone at least a bit more aware, or help them to be more curious about these things. Then, we also come out of these 10 years of tech, everything tech, right? We had the same boom between 96 and 2001. And so it seems to me that the world of molecules is completely left behind. And the world of bits and bytes is in the middle of everyone's heart and mind. And everyone wants to be create the next shopping app, instead of, when I tweet, I say, are we short shopping apps, or are we short fertilizer and wheat and, corn that is actually going into your shopping? And that is, if I would have said all these things 2 years ago, everyone would say, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Now we go through the process, painfully so. And I think it's going to be it's going to be in certain parts of the world, mainly for the poorest, the Bangladesh, the African high population countries that also depend so highly on like Egypt depends so highly on imports from Russia and from Ukraine. So this war, in addition to the hydrocarbon crisis that we already have, okay, it's a perfect storm also in food. So it's everywhere, wherever I look. And it makes me at times also very nervous, to be honest, because I see already now that the price behavior is dysfunctional in many parts of the commodities in the real life, with the guys that do it, the trading houses, and they are all very concerned. And I think we should be too, and we have to be now very careful with our ongoing policies, in my view.